Wide. Konechny spills down with 6. Puck still loose. Nosek keeps it moving. The NHL's all-time win record now belongs to these Boston Bruins. They win their 63rd game of the season. 63, 12, and 5, and still 2 games on the schedule for the 22-23 Bruins.
Just remarkable.
"20 seconds remaining. The Golden Knights start to celebrate on their bench. The silver trophy to the Golden Knights.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Stanley Cup!
What the puck is going on?
All right, this is What the Puck is Going On. Nephew Dave here alongside me this morning here in the studios. Uncle Steve, how are we this morning?
Good morning, sir.
We've got a full slate here on Saturday, as we usually do. Got us a little bit of a rainy day, Steve. I think it's going to continue throughout the day. So what better activity than to watch hockey all day long?
Feels like an old school winter day here just at the beginning of, sometimes March can be a lot worse than February. It's not exactly cold outside, but temperatures, I feel like, will drop. But yes, the rain kind of puts you in the mood to kind of relax on a Saturday and take in a full slate of National Hockey League action. And it is a spread across the board, and what a slate of games too. Some hard ones, maybe a layup or two you would think, but like you said, Dave, beware of some stuff starting to go a little wonky here, as we've seen some underdogs play real competitive this week. Teams like the Ducks here with back-to-back wins in the last couple of nights have proved that some teams haven't quit yet, right?
Right. And, the Ducks get the win last night against New Jersey. And while New Jersey has been underwhelming this season for sure, they are not putting the product out at all that we thought we'd see. But you got to think where the Ducks are in the standings with their records and the points collection for them. They've got to feel pretty good about that, I would think, Steve. I mean, I know I would. That's still one of the better teams, even though I mentioned the struggles that they've had this season. They still have a lot of good talent on that team. So good win for the Ducks. And Steve, you're absolutely right. I think it's time this time of years, it's start thinking about some spoilers.
I think we've seen one here in the last couple of weeks with our Capitals here.
Right.
Stepping up and playing really, really well. They're playing a lot better than you thought. And the perception of the Capitals is that they've just been bad, but the standings just stay otherwise. They just haven't been as bad as you kind of have thought here in recent weeks, as I'm trying to load up my standings now. But a good win by them last night, 5 goals unanswered against the Flyers. And the Coyotes last night, coming off a back-to-back, losing in Toronto the night before, having success beating Ottawa, who's been a red-hot team as well.
And the Senators were heavily, heavily favored in that game, Steve. It was just one of those things where I took a 1.5 play just to have something out there. It wasn't all that serious, but, they didn't cover it. And I think that's the point, like we're saying is, now we're getting to the time where there's 20 games left. Somebody's going to ruin the party.
Right.
So we're going to have to keep a good eye out for that, Steve. We'll go ahead and jump into the standings here. We'll start in the Eastern Conference with the Atlantic Division. Now, Steve, I want to see if you agree with me here. This Atlantic Division, a lot tighter and a lot more interesting this year than maybe it has been in the past year or two. with Boston having that humongous lead last year where nobody could catch them. We've got Florida sitting at the top so far.
Yeah, nipping at their ankles the whole time here with the Bruins. They got up to, I believe, a tie with them here a couple of weeks ago on the show. Relinquished back down into second place. But with the streak of the Bruins here in their last 10 games, which have 5 overtime losses in their last 10 for the Bruins, the Panthers 9-1 in those last 10, and that's good enough for them to sit on top right now. Well, both teams tied with 84 points, but a little bit better goal differential now for the Panthers. 15 more goals scored and a plus 53 than the Bruins.
Also worth noting, Steve, that the Bruins, as good as they are not a good overtime team. So maybe, that plays a factor coming down the stretch and maybe even into the playoffs. If that trend continues, they're going to want to get these games done in regulation as opposed to overtime. So Toronto sits in the third spot with 76 points. Not out of the reach yet. With about 21 games remaining, but they have some work to do. Now, they have been playing well. They've won their last time out. In their last 10, they are 8-2. So you got to figure they are hot right now. Boston last 10, 3-2-5. Florida 9-1. So the first and the third place team very hot right now. So definitely some things to keep an eye out here on the Atlantic. Let's jump into the Metro.
Well, your Red Wings are hot too, 7-3 in their last 10. I mean, you got to consider that hot as well. 72 points for them.
Well, and it's like we were talking about, Steve. I was saying, I think if we're going to do it, I think now is the time to put some stock into the Red Wings. They've kind of showed it. They're hot. They beat the hell out of us the other night, and that was a tough spot for the Capitals playing a team that hot on the second end of a back-to-back. So, maybe not as big as a deal as maybe we thought it was. They come out and correct things and really answer the bell there against the Flyers last night. So maybe we'll just kind of overlook that one where it would have been nice to have the points anyway. But like you said, Steve, Detroit, very hot right now. They hold the first wild card spot at the moment as well.
The other thing I want to mention too, real quick, is on Ottawa, and that's everything that you've been saying. Watch for, some teams who are having a little bit of success here to maybe hit a downward slide. And although Ottawa has been in last place, they were playing really good. They have now lost 3 in a row as well. So maybe not nearly as good as we were giving them credit for turning things around.
Right. Yep. And they probably had no business covering 1.5. The Coyotes, I feel like they're relatively the same team where they're at in the standings and just play wise anyway. So that might not have been the best play, but we wanted just to have something. We're just throwing a stab out there at that point when there's 3 games on the slate. So the Metro here, no surprise. The New York Rangers holding strong, 9-1 in their last 10. They're good for 83 points at the moment. Carolina in second place with 78 points. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10. And Philly clinging to the third spot, the spot that the Capitals are trying to chase down. They're good for 69 points. But, Steve, they are just 5-4-1 in their last 10. We'll go into the wild card. Detroit holding the first spot. 72 points there for them. As you mentioned, 7-3 in their last 10. Losers their last time out, and they have a very tough game today. So we'll see what transpires there. Tampa Bay holding the last spot with 70 points. They are 5-4-1 in their last 10. So, nothing crazy exciting there. Now, Steve, let's jump into a little bit of this wild card push, teams on the outside looking in. First up, the Caps, 65 points, but 6-2-2 in their last 10.
Well, I'll say this too. I mean, they probably, I think, have a better chance to jump Philly, who sits in that third spot in the Metro, which is an automatic playoff spot, 4 points behind them. where they're 5 points out of the wild card. They're only 4 points back in Philadelphia, and they proved that they can beat them.
Oh, yeah.
And the Flyers, I think, are maybe a good candidate for the penalty box coming up. Maybe as they might have seen their better days ahead of them. They've shown some inconsistency here in their last 10, just a 500 team over that stretch.
And they played tonight, so we'll see what last night's game has kind of done to them mentally, see if they can kind of collect things and get those points that they need for separation. I know the boys here in the studio are hoping that is not the case. The New York Islanders right behind the Caps with 64 points. They are 5-3-2 in their last 10. You have New Jersey with 64 points. Let's see here. They are 500 hockey in their last 10, 5-5. Pittsburgh with 62 points. They have some work to do, but they do have games in hand on all these teams. They are 4-5-1 in their last 10. We've talked about them most of the season. Major inconsistencies there.
Yeah, I mean, they have 5 more games to play than Tampa Bay even. So even if they go 4-1 in that stretch, that's enough to tie them points-wise with Tampa Bay. Anyway.
Absolutely. Now, the Buffalo Sabres, a ton of work to do, still in there, but they're really the cutoff here at this point, and they are actually 6-4.
Yeah, playing a little bit better lately, Buffalo. I've noticed that as well. I think a lot of us wanted to write the Sabres off and leave them for dead. But not quite yet. Still sticking around.
Right. So they, like I said, they've got some work to do, but they are still there for the playoff push. Now let's get into the Western Conference. We'll go through this as we have a bunch of games to cover, tough ones that we are really going to have to try and find something. In the Central Division, the Dallas Stars holding the first place spot, 81 points. Just 4-3-3 in their last 10. A little underwhelming for them, I would think. The Winnipeg Jets at 79 points in the second place spot, 7-3 in their last 10. They have a really good game right at 12:30 today against the Carolina Hurricanes. That'll be an interesting game, I'm sure. We have an idea of how that game probably should be played, but we will talk about that as soon as we hit the slate. Colorado in the third spot with 79 points, 5-4-1 in their last 10, but winners of 2 in a row. In the Pacific, we have Vancouver still holding strong with 83 points. Steve, at this point, unless these other teams get going, I think they're going to end up winning that division. So if you took anything on Vancouver winning that division, you're looking pretty good, and I'm sure that number was nice there at the start of the season or even midway.
I'm not sure what it was, but I don't think Vancouver was on anyone's list.
No,
to be this successful this year.
Well, they are on the radar now, Steve. So good.
Not stumbling as of late, though. Not playing nearly as good. And I said that the other night with the Kings when we were looking for an underdog. I was like, beware of the Kings here against Vancouver. They've been a little shaky. And the Kings going down early to Vancouver did a Capitals dealio scoring 5 unanswered.
Right. Steve, the Pacific, none of these top 3 teams in this division are playing all that well right now. Vancouver 5-4-1 in their last 10. Same with the Knights, who hold the second place spot. And Edmonton with the third spot at 5-4-1. So you got to figure that's basically 500 hockey there. That's an overtime loss. They do get a point for it, but it is a loss. Now into the wild card here, LA 6-4 in their last 10, and they are good for 70 points. So just outside of second and third place by 2 and 3 points. Nashville with 70 points as well. You got to figure they're going to be a wild card team. Going to be tough for them to catch the big dogs there at 1, 2, and 3 in the Central. And we have a drop off here. The wild card is not as close as it is in the East, Steve. Calgary was 63 points. St. Louis was 63. Seattle was 63. Minnesota was 62, and I think realistically that's where it stops, as you have Arizona with 53 points. That's not going to get it done, and I think there's too much talent ahead of them to pull close with that. So with that being said, Steve, wrapping up the standings, what are your thoughts in the West?
Here, I'm going to cue them back up here for me real quick as I'm taking a glance at the injury report, which is shocking to me in the sense that there just aren't as many injuries again as there were last year. A lot of these teams seem relatively healthy, but I'll get into that here in just a second. But as far as the West playoff race is concerned here, hey, Nashville's been fantastic. You got to give them credit here for 7 wins in a row for them now. They have the longest winning streak in the NHL by far. Calgary trying to make a push too. They won 4 in a row themselves. But Nashville doing very well to keep all these other teams at bay below them. And I'm not so sure that any of these teams are going to be able to catch up here. I don't think the Kings are going to fall out. I think the Kings may get better as we go. I mean, you see Edmonton keeping their slot. Vegas is a team I'd be concerned about a little bit.
Yes.
Because they are, injury-wise, they are the most notable team injury-wise. If you look at it, Vegas has a ton of injuries from that Stanley Cup championship team that they had last year. And with 73 points, that's only 10 points ahead of that pack of teams that is trying to get into the playoffs here. And if someone can just make a good run here and Vegas can, their injuries continue to have them hit the skids, then they could be the ones who oddly are the last man out. I'd be interested to see what a yes-no playoff prop is on that, to be honest. I'm going to see if I can find that odds to make the playoffs, yes or no. I wonder what the Vegas no pays. Because if it pays something like 20-1, that might be worth a shot, to be honest.
It's definitely going to be up there.
Well, you wouldn't think that they would miss the playoffs, but again, if they continue just to play mediocre hockey, or 4-6 in their last 10 with 1 overtime loss, then that may be bad enough to where a team like Calgary, who's been hot, or if Seattle can just kind of get hot, can make a run of things. And although Minnesota have lost 2 in a row, they are 6-3-1 in their last 10 overall. So maybe they could have a chance to get better as well. But I'll give credit to Nashville more than anything. Good goalie too, with Saros. So that's going to give them a chance to compete at every level here if they hold on and get into the playoffs.
That is an interesting take there with Vegas. I could see that. I don't know if you saw one of their key pieces, Mark Stone, is done for the year.
Wow, yeah.
I just saw that the other day. So, and you got to think, what's that going to do come the trade deadline that's rapidly approaching here in the next week, I believe. So they're going to have to, and that's going to open up some cap space for them. So they might be able to go and get somebody to replace him. But at the end of the day, that's a key piece for them, Steve. And yes, I would be a little bit worried about that team as well. You wouldn't think that they would be sliding like that. But it is an 82-game season, so they're the peaks and valleys are definitely there.
I don't know if I like the number. So they're minus 2,200 yes to make the playoffs in Vegas, and the no is only plus 870. I feel like the no should at least be 15-1.
Right.
So they're kind of giving you a cheap side of that price there at plus 870 for the no. Not enough for me to get involved there, but I could see it. I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a way, as we've seen, Steve. All right, so let's jump into this slate because we have some work to do.
I would take a shot at your Capitals plus 520 to make the playoffs.
There you go. Yes, we are certainly hopeful of that. Our Caps, Steve. I know you're a Caps fan over there. All right, Steve. Let's just start it off.
I just disown them at times.
Hey, I hear you. They.
You're loyal, Dave. You've never disowned them like.
Well,
I don't really either. I just change the channel when they're playing. Then
you should see the group chat that I have going with a few of the Caps fans. It can get pretty ugly at times. So, but anyway, Steve, let's jump right into this. We have a 12:30 p.m. start here we have the Winnipeg Jets traveling to the Carolina Hurricanes. Look at this, Steve. Your over-under is set at 5.5.
First instinct, without even looking at the line, told me this would be an under game, and I don't think that 5.5 wavers off of that at any stretch. Now, we've seen a string of these early start games having a lot of goals too, Dave. That's one thing we must be wary of. The defense might fall asleep, but the offenses haven't been walking into these games cold here in the last few weeks on these national television games. Now, I think this is on the NHL network, not ABC, to start the day today. I think the ABC game is the 3:30 game, the next game on the deck. But I just expect this to be tough. I don't have any goalies listed, but you got to figure it's Hellebuck. You got to figure it's probably Anderson, right? So
I would think. Yeah.
We know how Carolina plays tough, and they're stingy, and they're just really, really good at home here. Now, the Jets are getting a nice price, too, at plus 128. They've been fantastic all season long, but really took a bad loss. You can't say it's a bad loss. Dallas is a tough place to play for anyone.
Right.
But they weren't competitive in that game at all. But I think this is a competitive game. And I think this has every bit of, like you said, a kind of a playoff feel. Both of these teams will be in the mix here. Both of them have a good chance to win their first round once they get into the playoffs, just because they do have good goalies, good defense, et cetera, et cetera. So I expect this to be a good, physical, hard game. And I would lean towards the under here more than anything. Yeah,
Steve, at minus 112, that's probably a good bet. Correct score play here, 3-2 Carolina.
Yeah, that sounds every bit of a 3-2 Carolina. Yes.
So I think that is the play. We talked about that one. Do you think we even need to deep dive that one, or we just keep it short and sweet there with the under?
I don't think we need to get too exotic on that.
So under is the feeling here in the studio. We talked quite a bit about that one. Now, if you wanted to take any kind of exotic look at it, puck line for the Carolina Hurricanes at plus 180. You got to figure maybe that's an empty net goal at the end of the game.
Yes, yeah.
So there's your shot right there. There's your plus money shot. Next game up, tough game. This is gonna be a good watch. I feel like
fun game. Yeah,
yes.
I think this is a good game.
The Florida Panthers traveling to Detroit to take on the Red Wings. Your over under is at 6.5, minus 155 for the Panthers on the money line, plus 130 for the Detroit Red Wings. Two very good teams going at it today. Steve, what are your first thoughts here?
My first thoughts are that there should be a lot of goals in this game, to be honest. Florida's going to come in here into a rabid environment. The Red Wing fans are strong. They're going to have a lot of home support. I don't see any goalies listed, but I'm going to figure Bob Vrosky is going to be in there for Florida. But Detroit has shown that they do play higher scoring games. They are one of the naturally over teams here. If we go ahead and look at their splits on this season, they've scored 216 goals, which is best in the league. Let me see here. No, not quite the best. Vancouver and Dallas both have 222 goals scored, but Detroit has given up 191, which is a lot. Now, Florida's stingier on defense. So, of course, again, I mentioned Bob Vrosky, only 145 goals allowed, but they've scored 198 too, and they are on the road here. So I'm going to expect them to be able to score. I'm going to expect Detroit to be able to score at home too. And this could be one of those real sideways, crazy games here where we could get 8 or 9 or 10 goals even if you want to try to push up an alt line. Both of these teams in great form. Again, but they've only combined for 4 losses each here in their last 10 games combined, or 20 games combined, I should say. So I think over is the best play here. I think Detroit probably gets a slight edge because they have the home ice advantage here, and that's a nice plus price if you want to take them at the end of the day. And yeah, I think it could end up being something like 6-4 Detroit.
Right,
sticking that empty netter, get your extra plus payout on that goal and a half on the reverse alt line. And that's that. So, yeah, 3:30 ABC game. And I expect a lot of goals in this one.
Yeah, Steve. So that's pretty good angle there. I would think these two teams would be able to light it up.
And I think either team goal's good too.
Oh, absolutely. Team goals in a matchup like this are certainly in play. But Steve, I'm going to go just a little bit different here with you, and I'm going to take a look at the game parlay of Florida on the money line and over 6.5 at a plus 205 price. So
you're only getting 2.5 goals, Dave. 2.5 is my over/under for Detroit today.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. So there's a lot of fun angles in this. Saturdays have seemed to be really bad for us in the goalie department, though, unfortunately. So I don't know what's up with that, but Steve likes the Red Wings. I think I'm going to go slight edge with the Panthers. Team goals aplenty in this one.
Don't be shocked if you see these two teams meet in the second round of the playoffs or somewhere.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
In the woods, right? Yeah.
All right, next game up. Kind of a weird game here where you think one team would win. Maybe this is the spoiler. Edmonton Oilers traveling to Seattle to take on the Kraken, with the Kraken, fighting for their playoff life there. Over under 6.5 with the Oilers minus 155. Seattle plus 130 on the money line. Do you see a scenario in which the Seattle Kraken play spoiler today?
Absolutely, because Edmonton has been very inconsistent here as of late. They do have 204 goals scored on the year, but they've given up 170 as well, which is right about average. And Seattle playing their better hockey, best hockey, I think, kind of right around now, this stretch of the season. And an electric atmosphere for sure. Let's not forget, it's a 1 o'clock start time for them locally, so somewhat of an earlier start for them as well. Kind of an oddball game for us at 4 o'clock here with the two West Coast teams. Kind of has that NFL feel to it, I guess.
Right.
With that start time. But the Kraken, 14, 10, and 5 at home. You'd like to see that a little bit better. They have, again, won 2 games in a row here. So I would give them a fighting chance. This is a tough one.
It is.
I want to stick on Edmonton here, but I know that's going to be the very public play today. So I think just going to be a pass for me at the end of the day. This one, I think I'll try to look for better spots.
Yeah, tough one here, Steve. I do want to take a look.
It is a cheap number though for Edmonton. I will say minus 160.
Right.
And even on the 60-minute line, whatever that's going to be.
Now, could you be persuaded to take over 2.5 goals at minus 155 for the Seattle Kraken?
Yes, absolutely. Because they've been a little shaky there in net here for Edmonton as of late too. So I think that's probably not the worst angle in the world, Dave, is just the Seattle over 2.5 goals.
Yep.
I think that's fine. I like that. In fact, I would pair that with the Detroit one myself. Maybe that's where I'll start my ticket at the end of the day. But the Oilers at minus 105 on the 60-minute line isn't the worst thing either, I would say.
No, that's a pretty nice price for that. It's a game in which, like we said here at the beginning, the one team who is the Edmonton Oilers should win this game. But I tell you what, Steve, that's what gives me the worries, because as we've seen the last couple nights, hey, this team should win. The opposite happens. So I think, we talked about it before the show. Hey, let's try and find a spoiler for today. In my mind, I think we found it, Steve. Next game up, this is going to be a good one today here at 6 o'clock. The Colorado Avalanche taking on the Nashville Predators in Nashville. Really tough place to play for anybody, kind of like Dallas. Your over-under is going to sit at 6.5 with Colorado minus 135 on the money line. The Preds just plus 114. Steve, first thoughts here.
My first thoughts are this could be the potential first-round matchup if Colorado can get enough points to win the regular season points race for the Western Conference here. And Nashville sits in that 8th spot. Another thought would be that we talked about the physicality that could be involved with Winnipeg and Carolina, I think this could match it or even exceed it. To be honest, with Colorado and Nashville, I would expect a physical game. I think 6.5 is too high here.
Yes.
I think we have a couple of good teams who are going to play really, really good defense here. Again, I don't have any goalies listed, but I got to imagine it's Saros for the Predators, and the Avalanche are always going to be good on the defense overall. So I would lean under 6.5 goals in this game.
Yeah, Steve. So would you play a Predators team goals today? I think that I would take a look at that, knowing how hot they are. Maybe they don't win, but I think they can reach their total.
For considering that it's just over 2.5, always like that low hanging number for sure. So yeah, I think that's viable. Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked if Nashville won this game at the end of the day. But I think this is something like 2-2 in the third period, Dave.
Well, here's what I'm going to do, Steve. I'm going to take a little bit of a different angle here on this Saturday. I'm going to take Nashville plus 1.5 on the puck line with a under 6.5 in the game.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not a bad call.
So we're getting
that empty net scares you, doesn't it?
It really does.
He's catching that 1.5.
But you're getting a nice plus 170 number for it. If we want to make things interesting and kind of put a little bit of the trust factor that we always talk about into the Nashville Predators with their streak, why not? Let's give them a shot here. All right, Steve, this one I have a feeling is going to be pretty quick. The Minnesota Wild taking on the St. Louis Blues in St. Louis. Your over-under is set at an even 6 with the Minnesota Wild minus 125, St. Louis Blues plus 105 on the money line. I'm going to give you my quick thought here. St. Louis on the money line at plus 105 for me at home. Can they beat Minnesota? I think they can. Steve, what are your thoughts?
I feel like these two teams mirror each other a lot, to be honest. Let's see. St. Louis, they give up a few more goals than they score. Same with Minnesota. Now, this – what did you say you liked?
In this one, I just like a straight-up St. Louis money line.
I could see this sneaking over, where you think it might be an under game, to be honest.
Interesting.
Just kind of weird in that way. I could see this being 3-3 somewhere in the third period, and then one of these teams wins 4-3 overall. Both of these teams have some jockeying to do for sure to get where they need to be here by the end of the season. They're grouped right here together. Same points, basically, just St. Louis edging out Minnesota by just the 1 point. An extra game in hand for sure for the Blues. But, hey, they've lost 3 in a row themselves. The Wild have lost 2 in a row. So it's hard to have any faith or stock in either one of these teams. And that's why I would think the defense may let both of these teams down, and we might see some more goals than we normally would think for two teams like this. You think this is kind of a nitty-gritty kind of defensive game on your first thought. But the goals, to me, kind of lean towards the over here for this with Minnesota and St. Louis. Now, I don't think they'll blow it through the roof. I don't think we'll see 10 goals by any means in this game.
Right.
But I think they can get to 7 for sure.
I really like that angle, Steve. That's, let's take the money line factor out of it is what you're saying over there. Two teams that are very much alike. So over 6 is at minus 115. I'll go ahead and play it. You talked me into it, Steve.
The other thing, so Minnesota's team goals is 3.5, and St. Louis is the 2.5. Heavy juice on the St. Louis minus 166 on the over 2.5. You're going to get plus money on the Wild. Plus 118. I see if they get over 3.5. But I think you just take the straight flat over here.
I like that, Steve. Just kind of set it and forget it. Let's not worry about too much in that game. All right, now next game up, maybe, just maybe, this is the next spoiler. The Vegas Golden Knights traveling to Buffalo to take on the Sabres. Again, your over-under is set at 6 with a minus 122 for the Knights, plus only plus 102 for the Sabres. I think that's trying to tell us something. Steve, could the Buffalo Sabres be another spoiler?
Yeah,
today?
I think so. I think this is a good upset chance here for Buffalo. We talked about the Vegas struggles. And Buffalo is at home here. A very awkward spot for Vegas as well, as they are, I think, on the longer end of the road trip at this point, right?
Right.
I feel like they've been on the road for a while now. I would definitely lean with Buffalo here. In fact, don't be shocked if they win this game by a goal or 2 or 3 even, to really make this an upside-down weird one. I think Vegas will be a public play in this scenario, but Buffalo has not laid down, like we said earlier. And you're going to get a great price, almost 4-1, if Buffalo can win this game by 3 goals. That's a plus 390 there on that. But yeah, I could see this being a Buffalo wins this game 5-2,
Right.
4-1, something like that. They just get hot at home. Like I said, just playing better than Vegas at this moment in time. And if you're going to give us a plus price here and a big one on the all puck line, then might as well take a stab at it here. Obscure play, I think, too, as if the normal public wagers out there are going to see Vegas on a cheap number and want to hop on that. I think Buffalo's the side here.
And even for just minus 1.5 for the Sabres is at plus 230.
Yeah,
over here for me.
And I think you'll probably get a good price on. Do we get the over 2.5 for Buffalo in this game as well? There's a lot of over 2.5 goals here that I could get on board with today. When I look at things, which I will. Yes, over 2.5 is minus 168 for Buffalo.
Yeah, you could definitely sign me up for that. I think I like the team totals just a little bit more, but man, if you wanted to play that kind of exotic way, I think you're set up in a good spot here with Buffalo to do so.
Good lesson for all you listeners too, as we want to try to teach things. I like to do this in soccer. I like to do this in basketball. And I like to do this in hockey as well. You know, you can really take a lot of edge off when it comes to these teams if you don't pick one side over the other side and just go with the team goals. You just need your one team to get to a certain point, and you don't need to worry about what the other team is doing, basically, at that point. So, team goals, I don't think you can ever go bad with if you want to take that angle.
No, yeah, exactly, Steve. I very much agree with you on that. All right, next game up. 2 teams that played last night and lost. The Ottawa Senators are in Philly to take on the Flyers. Your over-under here is 6.5 with the Ottawa Senators, plus 110 on the money line. The Flyers, minus 130. And I don't know, Steve, 2 teams on a back-to-back, but I feel like the over could be in play here. Philly let in 5 last night, and Ottawa, they give them up, but at times they can get them too. They can score some goals. So, Steve, I somewhat like the over here. 2 teams that are capable of either scoring or allowing the goals one way or the other. So what are your first thoughts here?
If I need to pick something here, then I like your play leaning with the over, because you mentioned it. Ottawa has scored 193. They've allowed 208. So that's on the higher end of things. Philadelphia has scored 185. They've allowed 182. So that's somewhat on the higher end of things. We'll call that a C+ in terms of being an over team. But I don't trust either one of these teams, to be honest.
No.
And it's going to be a pass for me at the end of the day. When I see 2 teams I just don't trust, I'm going to just lay off it. And I kind of convinced myself last night when I had a small play on this Memphis Grizzlies, Portland Trailblazers game. I'm like, why am I betting on this game? These teams are terrible. So I think Philly's worst days are ahead of them coming up, to be honest. I could see that team regressing it where one of these other teams jumps into the playoff mix like our Capitals. And Philly's going to be the sacrificial lambs if that's going to be the case.
Right.
I think. So no trust here. Probably a no play, but I'll lean with the over.
All right. Next game up, the Montreal Canadiens taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa at 7 p.m. this evening. Your over-under is set at 6.5 again, plus 210 for the Canadiens, minus 258 for the Lightning on the money line. Steve, short and sweet here for me. I think it's a Tampa Bay team goals. And I think you can push to 3.5 here for sure.
I think that's a great play. That's a good angle here. Tampa Bay is a dead over team. They've scored 210 goals. They've allowed 210, which is about as bad as it gets. Let me see here. Not quite. The Blackhawks, put it in perspective this way. The Blackhawks have allowed 213 goals, and Tampa's allowed 210. That's right there. That's
right.
Not good. That is in the same ballpark. But Tampa, like we said, they can score. They can score at home. Much better home team is Tampa. 18, 8, and 4 overall. Montreal, surprisingly, not terrible on the road. 11, 12, and 6 overall. But 2, 7, and 1 in their last 10. They've really hit the skids here. So you can't get behind anything with Montreal at all. So, yeah, I like your team goals with Tampa Bay. I like that for sure.
So 3.5 is going to get you a -165.
That's fine.
We like that. Now, if you wanted to push
they could get 6 or 7 goals here.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Steve. Over 4.5 is just +130, though. For 5 goals, I think you want to get a little bit better number.
If they were a little bit better in net, I would definitely like an alternate puck line here. The problem is they're going to allow Montreal to score a couple of goals. So if you need to get -3.5, then you definitely need to get the 6 for sure. And that's at +390. Maybe -2.5, but +162 isn't the worst play.
Right. Yeah, I like that. All right, next game up, 7 p.m. This is going to be a good one. The New York Rangers traveling to Toronto to take on the Maple Leafs. Over under again is at 6.5. +105 for the Rangers on the money line. The Leafs -125. Now for the over, you're getting paid +100. You're going to double it. +105 for the Rangers, as we mentioned on the money line. Steve, do you play the Rangers here with these type of numbers?
I'm more interested in this game to see how these teams just play against each other overall for future stakes.
Right.
I want to see what these teams are like, because this without a doubt could be your Eastern Conference final. Right here.
Yeah, easily.
So these teams, I think, will see each other again in the playoffs. I think this is a good litmus test, as they say, for both of them. At the end of the day, it's a no play for me, but maybe the game I want to watch the most, to be honest.
For sure.
I like Toronto. I think they have a chance this year, but that chance gets foiled by a couple of teams potentially, and the Rangers are one of those for sure. I'll put them on that short list with Florida even, where Florida could make Florida and Tampa Bay or Toronto were to meet again like they did last year. Florida had their number. Just a psychological edge there for the Leafs if they have to face them again. But this is a tough one with the Rangers and the Leafs. Great game, 7 o'clock. If you have nothing else to watch, I think this is what you need to tune into.
Absolutely. I'm gonna take a shot there at the plus money overplay. 2 teams that I believe can light it up, unless this game goes into playoff mode and is another 3-2 type of game. So next up, we have the Boston Bruins taking on the New York Islanders on the island. Over under is set at 5.5. There we go. We got a 5.5. -130 for the Bruins, +110 for the Islanders. Steve, I already took the Bruins on the money line and something else that I had going on. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with that. I think Boston should be able to get it done on the road. But what are your first thoughts?
It's a cheap price and every chance for this to be a get-right game here for the Bruins. Now, the Islanders have won a couple games in a row here, but they allow a lot of goals too. They've allowed 200. Boston amongst one of the best scoring teams in the league with 207 scored. But they just need to get right here. And this is a chance for them to kind of regroup, play in a tough environment against a physical team, try to out-physical them, and just get the win here. I think the Islanders play competitive, but I think Boston wins this game. I think the regulation line comes into play here as well. Instead of risking the 132. I would take a look at the 60-minute line here with the Bruins because you're getting plus 115 and the payback on that. And I like that. Anytime you get the Bruins just to win a game without laying goals, and you're getting plus money, I think you need to take a shot at that. And the Islanders haven't proved that they can't beat the Bruins to me anyway.
Steve, I very much agree with that. Pretty solid advice there whenever, like you said, on that 60-minute line. Boston's going to get a plus number. You like a plus number on a team like that, certainly. So let's go with the next game. Maybe not. Let's turn around and run for the hills. The Columbus Blue Jackets are in Chicago to take on the Blackhawks at 8 o'clock. So, Steve, I know what you'll be doing at 8 o'clock. I know you'll be tuned in heavy to this one. Your over-under set at 6, minus 135 for the Blue Jackets on the money line. The Blackhawks are plus 114. So, Steve, you're going to have the popcorn ready for this one, right?
I said it a couple of minutes ago. What am I doing betting on the Portland Trail Blazers in the Memphis Grizzlies game? That is this game in a nutshell with the Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks. So no play, Dave. No play.
I want nothing to do with that game at all. Watch, I'll be sitting at home. I'll send you a ticket. Look at what I have with the Blue Jackets. But hopefully that's not the case. All right, next game up. This is going to be another short one, I feel like. San Jose is in Dallas.
I'll give you one on that, Dave. All right. Connor Bedard, plus 160 for a goal.
There you go. All right, there we go. We took something out of that. Very nice, Steve. That's a good play. Something you could probably talk me into there. Now, the San Jose Sharks taking on Dallas. In Dallas, any chance that the Sharks play spoiler here? I don't think so.
Not at all. So when I was watching, the only man on the East Coast watching Anaheim and San Jose the other night, late into the wee hours of East Coast time, watching and listening. San Jose has a lot of teams from their AHL, a lot of players from their AHL team up right now with the Barracuda.
Right.
All right. So they have a lot of injuries. They are one of the more injured teams on the injury report, as are Toronto and Vegas. Now, the other concerning thing for me, and good for your Rangers play, is that Toronto is somewhat banged up. But San Jose is on that list. Dallas, again, with that trade for the defenseman from Calgary, right? Minus 520 on the money line here for the Stars. That says it all. This is a walk in the park here for Dallas tonight. I mean, this could be ugly. Honestly, the Stars minus 4.5 plus 520, minus 5.5 at plus 1060, minus 6.5 at 17, plus 1700. Feel free, take them all.
Right. Oh yeah.
This could be one of those 9-1 games.
So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to hope for a just complete shutdown game by Dallas, and they win this game 4 or 5-0. And I'm going to take a flyer here on the under at minus 120. San Jose just gets, none or maybe one, and Dallas wins this game by 3, and they just kind of shut it down, and they're comfortable doing so. So I think that's the one thing you could take away from this. Other than that, Steve, you have some pretty nice exotic stuff going on over there that I might be very interested in.
I mean, you never want to, oh man, I got to take a team minus 5.5 in hockey.
Right.
This would be the time to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So you just swallow that. And you're probably going to lose your bet anyway, whatever you're going to do. So just throwing on something crazy and maybe it hits.
Right.
That's kind of my philosophy on that.
I like it. All right, last game up. The Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the Calgary Flames. This is an important game for both of these hockey teams. Your over-under here is at 6. Plus 110 for the Penguins on the money line. Minus 130 money line for Calgary. Steve, I think this is a Calgary Flames team totals. Pittsburgh can score, but they can also let them by them too. So give me Calgary's team total here in this one. is my thoughts.
I think these teams mirror each other a little bit, but Calgary definitely the team in better form here. So you kind of have to favor them at home a little bit. Pittsburgh on the longer end of their road trip now. Feel like they've been in Canada for a while, or Seattle, for that fact. But why do I think Pittsburgh's just going to put on a late surge at some point here as we get towards the end of the season, try to really make a run at the playoffs? It's kind of weird not having the Penguins in the playoffs. They didn't get in there last year, right?
No.
They were left out of the last day, I think.
Yes, yeah. Remember they
Chicago,
lost that bad
Chicago,
game. Yep.
Yeah. And they've just never recovered from that. Calgary, the team in better form, so you probably have to favor them here in this one. But I think probably a no play for me at the end of the day.
Understood.
I'll probably be asleep, hopefully, by this point.
All
I'll
right.
be counting my Dallas Stars
Yeah, there you go.
money signs jumping the fence like a counting sheet after they whip San Jose to death.
All right, let's touch on a little bit of futures real quick, and then we'll get on out of here as we're finishing up the day. So, Steve, let's start in the divisions. Anything you like in the Central? I like the Dallas Stars at plus 180. That's a low number, but I think it is playable at the end of the day. Colorado at plus 285 might be interesting, but anything doing it for you in the Central?
I would take a look at the Stars at plus 220. Is what I've got here, and I think that's fair. So I like that one more than anything else I see. Maybe an outside shot here for Toronto, still getting a nice number.
All right. Pacific Division, Oilers plus 260, the Knights 9-1, Kings 16-1. Any of that do it for you?
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really, but maybe Edmonton, because Vancouver might be stumbling down here down the stretch.
Right.
I'm not sure if I don't want to throw Vancouver into the penalty box, but I feel like they're kind of getting nudged over to that side of the ice anyway.
Right. All right. Now in the Atlantic, Steve, do you take an 11-1 price for the Maple Leafs to win that division?
Maybe.
They're not that far out of it.
Nah, with lots of hockey to play, they'll play these everyone ahead of them, I'm sure, too. So I like Toronto. It's a good team. The injuries concern me right now. But yeah, if you need to do some kind of late season action here, maybe like a Toronto-Dallas parlay, which pays 31-1 right now.
Nice. All right, we have a good feeling on the Metro. Can you buy in on any of that? Hurricanes at plus 160, and then it really gets pricey after that. I don't see the Rangers letting this lead go. So any thoughts on that?
No, I like the Rangers.
All right. Now let's do for the Cup, and then we'll get on out of here for today. Steve, I'll go through the top four, and you tell me if you like it. Panthers at plus 750, Oilers plus 800, Avalanche plus 850, Bruins plus 850. Or is there an outsider?
Well, I think it's wide open still. I think there's a number of teams that can win the Stanley Cup here at the end of the day. Dallas at plus 950 looks intriguing right now to me.
Does.
Toronto at 13-1 doesn't look like the worst number either. You're getting a better number about a week or two ago as well. The Bruins 10-1 is nice. Florida 9-1 is nice. I mean, I can make a case for any of those right now. Even the Avalanche plus 850 is not the worst number in the world.
Right. All right, Steve, you have anybody for the penalty box?
Let's go ahead and queue up our refs, and then we'll have to do our goal scorer too.
Yes.
And review the best bets. But I'll queue up the referees. They take a second to get going here.
And you're trying to switch 7 guys, Mike. Come on.
You can't do that. Dallas Philly number 10, 2 minutes broken.
Tampa, tripping.
I've hinted about it, and it started last night. I'm going to go ahead and throw the Flyers in the penalty box.
There you go.
Now, they might get by Ottawa tonight, but maybe pay attention to their slide coming up. Let's see here. Let's see who they have coming up on their slate. Just real quick, because I know we're running late on time here. But the Flyers coming up have the Blues, they have the Panthers, they have the Lightning. They do have the Sharks, but especially against the Panthers and the Lightning, both of those games on the road, that might be a bad trip to Florida,
Right.
For Philadelphia. That starts Thursday, and they'll have to get by the Blues first at home on Monday before they hit the road.
I'm going to go ahead and throw the Canadians with their 2-7 slide going on that you talked about. So give me the Canadians in the box. They, they allow a lot of goals as well, Steve. So that's my factor there for that one.
And I'll go ahead and cue up the horn for our goal scorers here. Let's see here. Who am I going to take to score a goal today? It's going to have to be in one of the higher scoring games. I think Detroit and Florida is probably that one for sure. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and take for an any time goal scorer today. How about this? We'll go ahead and take Alexander Barkov at plus 230.
Yeah,
for the Panthers
nice.
to get a goal today.
Nice. I'm going to go with a little bit more obvious and mainstream here. You're going to double your money if Connor McDavid can score this evening for the Edmonton Oilers against the Nashville Predators.
I'll stick with that Connor Bedard one, too, for the Blackhawks to get a goal.
Yeah, there you
and how
go.
about this? How about our boy Daniel Sprong plus 410 for the Red Wings today?
Okay, yeah, I like that. If
you want to do the same game with Barkov and Sprong, what could be a higher scoring game, those two together are plus 1525 on the payout for those two to score.
I like it. All right, the best bets of the day, Steve. I will start it off, and then we will finish things up with you. So I like the Florida Panthers and the over 6.5 today. Give me some Seattle team goals of over 2.5. We're gonna take a shot there on your angle with the over 6 today, Minnesota and St. Louis. Give me over 2.5 goals for the Sabres, over 3.5 for the Lightning. And then, Steve, I am going to take a shot here at over 6.5, New York and Toronto.
All right. I'll lean with the under Carolina and the Jets. I like the over. I'll lock in the Panthers and Red Wings over their goals, 6.5. I'll also look for a lower scoring game with the Avalanche and the Predators under 6.5. I'll do a slight lean on the over with the Wild and the Blues. I will do the team goals here for Tampa Bay at home, like you mentioned earlier. And I will also, upset of the night for me will be the Sabres over the Golden Knights in a very slight upset scenario. And I think the lock of the day for me is just going to be Dallas to the hammer, the Sharks, like no other team's been hammered since we've seen a couple of blowouts. I think last weekend were 9-2 games, I think.
Yeah, well,
maybe that was 2 weeks.
Yeah, we're I think we're due for another one there with the Stars. So I like that angle. All right, Steve. Well, that's a pretty good deep dive there. Some tough ones out there. But that's going to do it for us here Deep In Broadcasting on What the Puck is Going On. Hopefully we've put a couple good things out there for you. And as always, if you have any tickets going on and you're playing some NHL action today, good luck to you.
All right, yep, good luck, and we will see you next week at 10 a.m. Eastern.